Well, good afternoon and welcome to our nature-based soul work with Doug Van Houten. And this is our second program, and it's been such a exciting, we're doing one of these each month. And I'm so excited. The last conversation we had with Doug was just really fascinating. And so thank you all for joining us again. Again, every day at 3 o'clock, Interfaith Paths to Peace does different programs. And we're glad you decided to join us today. This is in the program slot called Soul for the City. So we do a variety of different programs on Mondays to help nurture our individual and collective soul. And so we're glad you joined us today. If you're joining us on Facebook, we really like to get your thoughts and comments. So as we get going in our program, please add your thoughts and comments, and we'll be sure to bring you into the conversation. And for those of you that are our Zoom participants, we will definitely have opportunities for you to join in and unmute yourself and join in the conversation as well. So I'm so excited about this really beautiful community of practice that's been gathering online. As many of you may have also been very skeptical, like, what are we going to do to build community? And here we are, you know, several months later, we're doing that online. So thanks for you that are committed to building an online community of practice to help us wake up and be more engaged and enlightened citizens. So we're going to jump in. Again, I want to thank you, Doug. Doug and I had a chance, actually, I guess it was about 3 weeks, Doug, that you came down to Paula's farm, and we walked around, and I had a chance to just sit at the feet of Doug a little more. And so, Doug, I want to thank you for the amazing work you're bringing to our community, and I'll let you share a little bit more about the context of the nature-based soul work and what we'll be doing today. So, Doug, thanks for being on, and look forward to our conversation today.
Oh, great. Thanks, Judd. And great to be here again. Very excited to do this and to get my work out more regionally and locally. I do a lot nationally, but I'm real passionate about bringing it closer to home and love this opportunity. And thank all of you all who are here, who I can see, and then I imagine some folks on Facebook. But yeah, you know, what I do is nature-based soul work. Inviting people into the wilderness. You could say the inner wilderness of the psyche, but also the outer wilderness of nature. And doing soul work and helping folks to cultivate their innate natural wholeness they were endowed with by nature. And also doing the work of self-healing. And also doing the deeper work of listening to soul, descending deeper down into the deeper layers of our psyche and listening to the great wisdom that lives there. And that's the real architect of our life, right? What is that wisdom inviting us to do in this life? And so, like, ways to tune into these these conversations with soul, we call them soulcraft practices. Again, ways to get around everyday consciousness, to listen again to that deep wisdom within us and live that into the world. And we need to do the healing and holding work to do that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. We'll talk more as we keep going.
Great. So we've got a Prezi that we're working off of. So I'll pull that up, and I do want to. That's not the right one. I do want to share where we are in this series. We started last month talking with Doug, and we looked at a Soulcentric developmental map that came from work of Bill Plotkin's, which a lot of this work comes from, and that Doug works with. And today we're going to be looking at what's called the nature-based map of the psyche. So Doug's going to lead us not only in some theory around framing that, but also some real specific practices. So wherever you are, if you're joining us on Facebook or locally on the Zoom, we'll be doing some practice today that Doug will be leading us in. Just to let you know where we're headed in the future, next week we're going to be doing soul-centric dream work. And again, I've always, I think Dreamwork is one of the most powerful unconscious methods and modalities we can use to allow the psyche and the soul to speak to us, and is a great practice. And so next week, Doug will be leading us in some dream work. We do want to give you a heads up. We would love for you to do some homework for that. And Doug, do you want to explain here what kind of homework you want them to do if they come back next month?
Yeah, it's real simple. Yeah, record your dreams and write them down in the present tense. So keep a journal and your pen right by your bed, and inviting Dream Maker to give you a dream, and maybe telling Dream Maker some compelling reasons why you'd want to dream. And again, write it in the present tense, and then maybe even give it a title, and come ready to share it without needing your notes. If you need to, that's fine.
So come do your homework. You dream every night, you just don't remember them. So set an intention to remember them and write them down. And next week we'll do that. And then we're going to do later in October, symbolic art work process. In November, deep imagery. And then on the 14th, we'll hear some stories from other sessions. So that's where we're headed. Thanks for joining us today. And Doug, take it away in helping us understand this map of the nature-based soul map of the psyche.
I will, but you know, Judd, I'd love to start with a poem here from Rilke. And
even better.
Yeah, right. And it's called Earth, Isn't This What You Want? Earth, isn't this what you want to arise in us invisible? Is it not your dream to enter a soul wholly? There's nothing left outside us to see. What if not transformation is your deepest purpose? Earth, my love, I want it too. Believe me, no more of your springtimes are needed to win me over. Even one flower is more than enough. Before I was named, I belong to you. I see no other law but yours, and know I can trust the death you will bring. And I love this poem because he's guiding us to Earth, and what Earth is dreaming, you could say, is dreaming and imagining through us. Nature is pure imagination, and we will be transformed if we reinstall ourselves in the natural world, which is really the underpinning of this work, is getting people back out into nature, outer nature and the inner nature of us, soul. These are, you could say, our two most trustworthy guides right now. And again, I think Rilke, there's so many great lines in here. You know, I see no other law but yours, and know I can trust the death you will bring. You know, when he's speaking of death, I hear that metaphorically, psychospiritually, right? Like caterpillar to butterfly. And so with this work, when we reinstall ourselves in the natural world, transformation naturally happens. We mature. Nature holds all the blueprints. Our own inner nature holds all the blueprints for natural maturation. So anyways, we'll talk more about that. But I love all of Rilke's poetry. No one better for this kind of work.
We may use that one on Thursday mornings with our poetry, our Lectio Divina with poetry. So I'll if you could send that one afterwards, I'll also put it in the chat box on Facebook so people will have it.
I will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, if you want to head back to that model, I'll start us in on that, Judd, unless you've got something else.
No, that sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, go to the black and white one.
This one.
The other one. Yeah, that one right there. Let me also preface this by saying we're going to talk, so there'll be some didactic here, but as I talk about a couple of these facets of wholeness, I'm going to be guiding you all on a guided imagery to help break that up. So it's not all just talk. But also, as we go through each one of these facets of wholeness, be pondering some questions that you might have, and we'll leave room at the end to do that. So what we're looking at here is the nature-based map of the psyche, cultivated by a fellow named Bill Plotkin, and with some other input with other guides. And essentially, Bill has been guiding folks in the wilderness since the 1980s. And he noticed these archetypal expressions that his participants had around wholeness and what it is that they were cultivating when they were out in nature. He also borrowed, obviously, from some other work out there. Other people have models with some of these archetypes on it. But he's done something very unique here. He has plotted it on a map based in the 4 directions, or you could say based in nature. And these are, again, archetypal. And so if you could see in the center there where it says north, south, east, and west, yeah, where Judd, where your pointer is, north, yeah. And then if you go outside of the ring to the right, innocent, sage, fool, and trickster, that's in the east. Down below, the wild man, magician, wanderer, psychopomp. Oh, you know what, Judd? This is not the right model. This is the interpersonal. We need the intrapsychic one.
Oh, the intrapsychic one.
Did I not send that one to you?
I'm not sure.
And that doesn't matter if we didn't, because I can go through it without it. We can still just use the, no, yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah, let's just stay here. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the east, the innocent sage, fool, and the trickster, right? Yeah. Okay. So just a few more things about this model in general is it's a holistic model because it includes nature. And you could say previous maps have not done that, at least for contemporary people. You know, nature-based people, obviously, they were very much embedded in the natural world. And so it seems very critical, again, to invite nature into the conversation. And this model is also wholeness-oriented as opposed to pathology. So you could say this model shows us what can go right, where the DSMR shows us what can go wrong. So what we're doing with this model profoundly is helping people to cultivate their wholeness. And again, this is wholeness that nature naturally gave to us. We are endowed with it. It has to be called forth, cultivated, invited, and role modeled. But it lives innately in each of us. We all have could say a 360-degree possibility inside of us. And let me just also add here that this work is beyond healing and holing. I alluded to that earlier. The world, you could say, is calling us, beckoning us to re-envision the human project. And you could say to have a shift in consciousness, right? And so reclaiming our natural wholeness is profoundly important, right? It's an integral bounty to who we are and what our gifts are to others. And when we bring all of this on board, we're powerful in a beautiful way, right? And we're guided by soul, not by our ego or some other part of us or what culture expects, but we're rooted in soul. Again, our deep wisdom that, again, is dreaming and imagining through us. So we want to revitalize the possibility for humans now, and to, again, reclaim our natural wholeness and tune into soul, right? So let's see if there's any questions you have, Judd, about the overall model or comments. And if not, I'll just jump into the innocent sage.
No, I think describing, yeah, some of the different aspects of it would be helpful. And do we go through all of these in our lifetime, or is this like, how is that? Is it have any linear aspect to it?
You know, not really. I mean, you could say, though, that we are cultivating this our entire lives. You're never finished with your wholeness. So you'll always be doing remedial work on your wholeness.
So more like a spiral,
Right.
come around to these
Right.
things at different levels and different stages.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you work on one, it leaves more room and awareness to work on the other and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm looking for the other one, and I may be able to pull it up here in a sec, but if you want to go ahead and use this one.
Okay. Well, this will have it all here. Yeah. Well, what you see here, let me just real quick, see the orange disc, north, south, east, and west? That's the horizontalness of this model, middle world. This is the personal, the interpersonal, everyday consciousness. This is where we work on, these facets of wholeness and delve into our fragmented parts. And there's a verticality to it, an access to the upper world of spirit. The east part of us is real drawn to that. And then there also is this underworld. So you could say there's 3 realms to human development that we want to work on. This model that we're covering today, we're going to be working on the middle world of the north, south, east, and west. Yeah, Judd, why don't you go and pull that other one over? Yeah.
And there's a question on Facebook. Would you describe the difference between spirit and soul?
Yeah, like spirit, you could say, is that one beautiful aspect of creation, of mystery that permeates and animates everything, right? And it transcends all of it. Spirit is the whole thing. It's ultimate reality, ultimate nature. Some call it God, Yahweh, right? There could be all kinds of names for it. And when we experience it, when each of us experiences it, because it is the one, we're really experiencing the same thing, you could say. We're experiencing spirit. Now, soul is how we embody spirit, and this is unique. Like a thumbprint and a snowflake, each one of us is here with our own archetypes, you could say, the way they come together. And so no 2 people are the same. No 2 black holes are the same. Everything has its own unique expression. Its own private song, as Mary Oliver says. So
in some, you could use for the spirit realm, you could use unity or oneness, and for the underworld soul, you could use particularity, a unique expression of soul. And some have said that this is the great love affair of agape love for erotic love. So agape is the one seeking to be the particular, and erotic love is the particular seeking to be the one. Right. And so we're caught up in the middle, in this middle world of this divine love affair, the divine drama of our particular soul with the universal soul, and we're all living that out on the middle world plane is sometimes the way people talk about that.
That's beautiful, Judd. Yeah. I like to think of it as, I may have mentioned this last time, that we're deconstructing the ego, reconstructing it rooted into soul, but ultimately in service to spirit. And the ego, everyday consciousness, the surface part of our psyche, longs for something to complete it. Well, soul and spirit complete it. And you're right. The work is to know when to surrender or lean in, right? So sometimes the work is to connect back to the eternal. Sometimes the work is to deepen in being here. right?
Mhm.
And ego, you could say, is the handmaiden to soul. It's the hero. It's what brings soul out into the world. And we want a really healthy ego. Self-healing and holing work. It's absolutely essential to bring effective soul work into the world. So that's why we do this healing and holing, self-healing and holing work at Animus.
Another way they talk about that is rest in oneness and love the particular.
Right. Right. We need the passions and creativities of our souls, the healing and holing of our egos, and you could say the equanimity of a peaceful mind.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how about we dive into the model, and I'll start us off with a guided imagery. So the East here is where the innocent sage and also the fool and the trickster live, but Bill narrowed it down to the innocent sage. And I'm going to invite you all on this guided deep imagery, and I just want to invite everybody to get comfortable and go on and close your eyes maybe. Take a couple of deep breaths. And exhale and feel yourself, you could say, descending out of your heads and down into your bodies. And again, letting yourself move as you need to. And I'd like to invite you to imagine now that you are facing the east. You could actually even turn and face the east if you want to. And call outside yourself, inside yourself, welcome powers of the east. And feel and see how the sun comes rolling up over grandmother's belly each and every day, bringing us the dawning hours and the end of another period of darkness. Notice how each spring the weather turns warm and fecund with budding new life. And as you're standing there facing the sun, notice the new sprouts on the trees, on the branches, the new buds poking through the soil. Maybe imagine into a bear cub emerging with mother from the den of winter. Feel into your own excitement of the promise that each new day and each new spring delivers. Feel that excitement in you, like a little kid. Remember the joy that spring brought every year and still can and does. At this time of the day and this time of the seasons and of life in the East, you are more innocent now than you ever will be at any other time in your life. This is akin to beginner's mind, seeing with fresh eyes. This part teaches us how to be in relationship with each thing fully. Feel that part of you that has unquestioning acceptance of the given. Feel this in you. It's still there. Remember how to respond with a young heart, acting without guile or deception. This is an uncompromising state of love and perfection that lives in everything. Let yourself be drenched with this, as a newborn is, who has not yet tasted from the tree of knowledge. And now moving from there, notice how the sun moves higher into the sky. See how it is illuminating everything. Feel that. The sun is revealing more and more all around you. And you are now seeing the bigger picture. Things are illuminating. Here you could say you're on the mountaintop. And you notice everything. We have this innate sagely wisdom, this great discernment and understanding. Notice the whole village down there from the mountaintop. You can see all the stages of life. Great insight and awareness. All the circles or cycles of life are there. You have this deep consideration for the entire Earth community. You want to consider more deeply what is true and everlasting. Feel into the sagely part of you. Notice this, you could say, mystical realization of your belonging to everything, and that you are connected to the one. And you feel into the great imagination of the cosmos here with this sagely part of you. Allow yourself again to be drenched in this sagely wisdom that resides innately in each of you. And then notice too in the East that there is another energy of great wisdom that resides inside. A sacred, foolish trickster quality that is in each one of us, who knows how to lighten up, who can shake us up and keep us from thinking we know everything, who can trick us to help us see the larger picture, who can poke fun at us and the king. And like in the tarot, this is the one of us who is foolish enough to step off the cliff and go on the heroine's journey to soul, questing for our wholeness and our soul story. All of these qualities live within us here, the innocent sage, fool, and trickster, and all are getting to a kind of wisdom. And maybe express your gratitude for all of these powers in your life and your willingness and longing to perhaps get to know them even more. And when you're ready, take a couple of deep breaths, move your fingers and open your eyes. And if any of you have any questions or comments, we'll leave, what, a few minutes, Judd, before we go to the south?
Yeah. Yeah, if you've got a comment on Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and join in the conversation, or question. You want people to reflect on what they experienced, what came up for them, Doug?
They could, yeah, that, or if they have a question about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, experience of that. Perfect. Yeah.
You know, when I had children, and remember we'd take them out just when they could just kind of first start walking, and I was always amazed at trying to see the world through their eyes, that everything was new, like that beginner's mind thing. And I remember thinking, watching my little kids walk around in nature, why can't, life would be just amazing. Just every corner is amazement, and that's the beauty of that innocent, without what's life before my bias. What's life before I named something and then dismissed it? What's life before, oh, that's just a tree, and actually then when I just saw the tree and didn't have to name it, but I could just be with it as it was. And yeah, I really appreciated that there's still a part of me that can do that wonderment part, that could encounter everything, if I would so practice with that kind of new awareness or open awareness, just to let it be what it is, not what I think it is, or not what I've made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of this lives in us by birthright. We are endowed with all, nature gave us this. And you can cultivate a seasoned innocence now with certain practices and processes. And of course, that's what a lot of the Eastern practices are, right? Of meditation, prayer, yoga, clowning, wandering in nature. One of my favorite is a praise walk, where you praise all the beings you see on the earth, heartfelt, profoundly, and you speak to them and not about them. Yeah. Right.
Paul Ricoeur calls that the second Niavate.
Yeah.
The first Niavate, and before, we develop all of the naming, and then there's the sage goes into the second Niavate, a new naiveness to what life is.
Yeah.
Any thoughts
you got
from?
a question?
Yeah. No. Well, any thoughts from anybody online, or responses about that? We've got a variety of different ages here online. Anybody want to reflect? We got some sages here. I know. Greg, Suzanne, any of y'all want to reflect on your experience of innocence, the difference between your newborn innocence and then kind of a sage innocence?
Well, while they're pondering, I could jump in, unless you've got something.
Greg, do you have something?
No, I share Judd's feeling. I've noticed as I've added years that I am delighted seeing young children as they dance in circles, as they smile, as the simple, direct joy, curiosity, and wonder with which they experience the world around them. I don't care if I'm seeing them, in a grocery store, a playground, or whatever. It's a real pleasure to be sitting on that park bench and just be able to see the wonder of youth.
But
So
beautifully,
I relate to
yeah. Yeah, beautifully said. Absolutely. If you want to learn about innocence, get around young people, babies especially, because they still got a foot in the other world, you could say.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Any other comments, reflections from those that are joining us?
I'm struck by the gathering of the innocence and also sort of the playful, the trickster, the sense of sort of, I mean, the way I'm interpreting a kind of irreverence, reverent irreverence, to have joy and pleasure and to just be tickled pink by it all.
Mm. Way, yes, definitely, yeah. That part is very important to cultivate. You know, I'll share a personal that I've always been overly concerned with appearances. And so cultivating the fool was very scary and challenging for me. You know, the one who could poke fun at myself and at others, and who could relax and not care what others think about me so much. And so I spent several years working, I'm still working on that, it feels like. Yeah. The one that can shake me up, right? And help me to see things differently. And who is, you know, irreverent about my own ego, right?
And I love this, the trickster, and I'm glad it's in the East. I really liked when active imagination that I did, one of the archetypes that feels really strong for me is the trickster. It came up as a Rumpelstiltskin figure in an active imagination, and basically had some really beautiful wisdom for me about always realizing that the trickster is always there, and I always need to know the trickster is around, both in my actions, but also the trickster is the fool that is the only one that can speak to the king. Right? I mean, and that's the archetype. It's that part of you can speak to the ego because it comes around the side, right? It has a message to the one in power. If you were just to step up to the king and say that, anybody else, you know, the king would just kill you.
Yeah.
But the trickster can speak to the king in a way that the king can still remain powerful and yet hear the message that needs to be heard.
Right, and be integrous, right? And
yeah,
right?
Yeah, you can still have integrity, even though, and so I really appreciate, you know, tapping into the positive trickster, or the creative trickster that can speak truth to the king.
Absolutely, yeah. Coyote, raven, right? Energy, yeah. So should we go on to the south, or?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I didn't know, I pulled up this other one, and do you want to speak any to what seem like the opposites or the shadow of these things?
Well, we were going to come
wait
to that later.
Okay.
I think we go through the facets of wholeness first.
Sure.
Yeah. But go back to that model, because that actually names them all out. Yeah. See, this is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Winston, Sage, Fool, Trickster, yeah. Now, if we turn 1/4 to the south, I'm not going to do a guided imagery here. We'll just talk about this. Here's where the wild indigenous one lives. You know, this is the one that's at home on earth, home in their bodies, right? This is the one that, you know, is enchanted by the wild others, that can connect to emotions when they get stirred up. This is the one that knows how to be sensual and erotic even, which is what you were mentioning earlier, Judd, which is the attraction, right? This life force of attraction to all these others around us. I often think of, like, I can look at a tree and the way the curve of the branches has an erotic attraction, which is bigger than sexual, right? And then the indigenous one, you know, this is the one that knows the bioregion, the watershed that they live on and near. This is the one that knows whose scat that is, whose hoot that is. You know, different names for snow and water, knows how to grow food, knows the solstices and equinoxes, right? All these things that the indigenous one, right? And think about like today in our world, like you ask kids where food comes from, and some will just point to the cupboard. They don't know beyond that. You know, we've lost this indigenous part of us. And in some ways, nature has become a gravel pit in a lumber yard, you know, or at best, a backdrop to the larger human affairs. But there's something very powerful of reclaiming your indigenous self. And that's what will happen when you come to one of my programs or do work with me one-on-one. I'll help you to reclaim your natural human wholeness and wildness. You know, the wild one is, like you were mentioning earlier, Judd, this is the one before any cultural shaping. This is who we naturally are. It's, Mary Oliver says, letting the soft animal of the body love what it loves. This is the South. And in the Western civilization, much of this gets cut off and thrown into the shadow because it's too dangerous psychospiritually to live. And there's a part of us that psychospiritually downsizes us to fit in with our caregivers, our religions, our communities, our peer groups, our siblings, right? Because wow, if I embody that anger, or if I sing in public, or if I express, you know, displeasure, or if I get too big and beautiful, I might receive jealousy and, you know, envy and all kinds of challenges in my life. So we are missing a lot of this in the Western culture, a whole lot of this. It gets repressed. And it's huge work to reclaim this.
Yeah, and I love these the wild man or the wild woman reclaiming those, like, and in the mythologies, like even the Jesus narrative, right? That's John the Baptist, right? He was wild. The wild one is the one that can see the Christ in the Jesus and has to baptize him. Right? So he's it took a John the Baptist to baptize a Jesus, right? So that Jesus knew himself to be the Christ. But it's the wild one that can see that. Yeah. And the corporate world has just sucked out the wild man. You know, in Iron John, right? It's the wild man that where the golden ball that the boy's playing with goes in to the water, and the wild man, Iron John, is the one that's got it in the bottom of the water, right? He's got the golden ball underneath the water, and the boy has got to go steal the key to get him out of his cage under the water, and the key to the cage is under the mother's pillow. Oh my gosh. I just love that. I mean, does that get any better or what? You know, so for the wild man to come out, the boy has got to deal with his mother issues in order to get the key to unleash the wild man. Because the mother, you know, wants the boy to be all prim and proper, right? I'm using these as archetypes, right? But, you know, the mother wants him to succeed in the world, and what he's got to do is get rid of the wild man. And so the key is to confront the mother. You got to trick the mother to get the key. And that's male psyche there. So I just love the wild man, though. And I think we've got to find ways for men to get back in touch with their wild man.
He has to deal with the mother complex.
Yes, exactly.
Right, like most of us, male or female.
Right. Exactly. We deal with it in different ways. But
I tend to think of this work as inviting the wild back into the cities.
Yeah.
You know, and if we had access to this part of ourselves, we wouldn't have much appetite for what's happening on the planet. We've been tamed. and put in a trance, you could say, to accept the insanity that's going on around us. The wild one has plenty to say about this. So some of our deepest creativity and passion comes out of this part of ourselves. Yeah.
And Doug, I'll share another dream here. So I had a dream where I was a werewolf, and I was running through the woods, and I had all of these the abilities that a werewolf had. I mean, it was just like all of my senses were highly engaged, and I was going really fast. It was like almost like I was flying, but I knew I was a werewolf. And I came into this opening, and all these other werewolves started coming up to me, and I started teaching them about being a domesticated werewolf. I kept telling them, hey, you're a werewolf. Don't ever forget that. But there are also some rules. Like, you can't eat people's pets. You can eat wild animals, but you can't eat pets. So what it was my psyche telling me, oh, yeah, your wild man's there, and don't you forget it. And you can choose to live that wild man in a way that doesn't hurt other people.
Oh, beautiful.
That's the moral wild man. But if you forget you got a wild man in you, then you're going to repress that, and it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt other people.
Right. And there's something about embodied, like the overly cultivated, sensitive little boy who's, not in touch with his wildness. And here you got this werewolf energy of this, probably this very wild and masculine part of you, right? Yeah. There's something about like what you're saying here about like when you bring those two together, there brings a balance, right? Exactly. I think it's partly what you're intimating here.
Yeah, the wild one by himself is really erotic. It's very is wild, and it can be tamed, or it can not necessarily tamed, but it can be given direction by a higher self.
Right, by all of our cultivating all of our facets of wholeness, like the sage, the one who can see the big picture, or the nurturing generative one too, who knows, how not to step on other people's toes, right, and hurt others, right? Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, anybody else want to jump in with thoughts? And I mean, people, I'm sharing all my dream stuff here. You guys are getting all my, somebody else step up and share something. Like where's your wild woman? Where's your wild man? Where have they gone? Suzanne, come on, the Episcopalians, they want to get rid of all the wild. Episcopalians, hold on, you're muted there, Suzanne. Where'd your wild woman go when you became an Episcopal priest?
One is not exclusive of the other.
I know, I'm just kidding you.
But I'm distracted because I'm in my condo on the 11th floor, and I have 3 hawks that are going around and flying by my window. So it's hard. I'm in the middle of, and this is all new to me. I haven't sat in on some of these sessions before, but I have shifted from living in a house on the ground to being on the 11th floor with the clouds and the tops of the trees. And that is a wonderful new thing. And it's also different, and I'm learning about it. And it was interesting to me as you were telling about some of your dreams and some of the ways you were seeing things. I was having this display of 3 of the creatures. I think because they've been around before, I think I'm seeing a young hawk with 2 other hawks, and they just swoop around. And so I'm sorry if I get distracted.
Well, no, that's not distracting at all. That's exactly where you ought to be. So,
right.
So I can make a comment here if we have time for another comment.
Please.
When I was little, I remember very distinctly, I had 3 younger sisters all of a sudden. So I'm at the age of 6 and there are 3 others. In my family, my mother is braiding my hair, and I love my long hair, but my mother decides that it's too much for her to take care of all of our hair, long hair. So I had she cut my hair and continued to wanted me to have very short hair during my childhood. And I kept that, but I also always missed my long hair. When I retired, I decided I could grow my hair long again. And I had a friend say to me, "You look like a wild woman now," you know? And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty. The other thing that happened, this is two mother stories. Around the time that my hair got cut, I was also finding myself enjoying dancing to the record player, to you know, and watching my skirt and how beautiful it was, and just thinking I was a beautiful little creature, you know, and I loved to dance. And I was about 6 probably. And I said to my mother, "I want dancing lessons." And she said, "We don't dance in the Stoner family. We play the piano."
Wow.
That was another way of sort of trying to get me into what it means to be in the Stoner family, which was okay. But it was more the, you know, professional woman look, which I did become. And so that's just another kind of memory that came up for me.
Right, and I can imagine, like, you know, part of you being real disappointed, like this is naturally who I am and what I want to experience and explore, and here's this outer pressure, right? No.
Yeah, I was very disappointed, and I did feel that I needed to pay less attention to how beautiful I was and kind of do the classical music, not jazz, not, you know, not pop. It was classical, of course. So everything's more. But that's okay. I mean, it's also okay because I benefited a great deal from being a Stoner woman.
Right. As long as it didn't kick into gear a lifetime of, you know, becoming what others require or want us to be. You see, if we do that.
Very much of a creative tension there. Yes.
Yeah.
A desire to go back into art again, and that I always enjoyed as a child, but felt was frivolous, and now I've been able to get back into that as well. But there was always that creative tension there, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Thanks, Marilyn.
This is Maud from, I'm up in New York.
Hey,
yeah,
Maud.
Maud, good to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's nice to be connected. I've been out of internet access for about 6 weeks. Which actually was a little bit shocking at first, but I got adjusted very well to having no internet, but it took a little adjusting. And now that I'm back, this type of a meeting is wonderful. I just had one little experience to share. This morning, I'm living at a community that's pretty much shut down except for the people who live here, and there are 3 small people, children, ages like 2 and 3. There were 3 of them, and they just buddy around all the time. And they came to visit me today at the pottery studio. And I had at one point, I was throwing a pot on the wheel, and the three little people came, and they all put their hands in the pot while it was moving around, and they started adding water to it and touching it and adding, you know, just, it was like throwing things into it and grabbing things out and taking the sponges. And it was just, there was just the thrill of being in the moment. It was so fresh, and it just filled me up. It was wonderful.
Beautiful, yeah. Reminds me of what Greg was sharing about being with those young ones and in touch with innocence and enchantment, this natural exuberance, right, to life and each other, cooperation and playfulness that lives in us, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and Cindy, Cindy's on. I don't know, Cindy. I can see that having to get students past their, I've got to do things right with she's an art teacher, but getting them into their own wild creative space, right, where they can just enjoy being in the elements rather than having to produce or something. You want to talk about that?
Well, Sure. Yeah, they all want to be, they want their stuff perfect, and they, you know, it's just really, it's fascinating because they're so afraid of making a mistake, and it's through their mistakes that their stuff actually becomes really amazing and complicated, and shows, you know, and it shows that process of exploration. So it's, yeah, no, that's actually my biggest high. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah.
Any other comments or thoughts? Marilyn, there's a comment. Oh my gosh, Marilyn, I had 3 sisters at 5 years old too. A 4th came later. And there came a point where my parents, more my father, got tired of dealing with our hair and took us to the barber, who gave us all little boy haircuts. I grew mine long again when I was in high school. So that's an interesting thing that women are sharing, the cutting of the hair.
Yeah.
Doug, who was that? That you,
that was Paula.
Oh, okay.
Paula Shanehoff, yeah.
Good to see Cindy Young too. I haven't seen you for a while.
Hi, Marilyn. No. And actually, we got taken to the barber as well.
Oh, my
yeah, with pixies. Yes.
My mother did it herself, actually.
She did the first one. Then we got to go to the barber. Yeah, it was always nice.
All right, Doug, you want to keep, we're getting into great stories. You bet you want to keep us moving around the wheel?
I'll just comment too, this is the wrong map. This is the interpersonal. We're looking for the intrapersonal. So go to this middle one. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now we're going to turn a quarter west to the west. And this is where the muse beloved lives. These inner beloveds, these guides to soul, these psychopomps that take us down into the deeper layers of our psyches. And so I have a deep imagery here, and would again like to invite you to go on and close your eyes for a few minutes here. Again, taking a couple of deep breaths and feeling yourself in your body there in your chair or wherever you're at. And now imagine that you are looking to the west, and that you are standing among trees, and there's a stream there. It's very late in the day. In fact, it's dusk now. See and feel the sun descending off into the horizons, going down. Eventually, bringing darkness. And notice how things are not quite as so seeable in this direction. You can feel the mysterious time of twilight approaching. And notice as the sun is setting, how it casts shadows back across the landscape. Places you cannot see, dark places, perhaps scary places. See if you can feel your own longing and fear to know what is waiting in the fruitful darkness, in the shadowy landscapes of you and all around you. As you stand there in the growing darkness of the West, recall that in the East, with all that light, you are more outwardly focused, more extroverted. How you are more drawn to the whole picture. But now in the dark of the West, you are more drawn to what is up close. You are drawn to each particular thing and its unique mystery. And you are now more curious of your own existence. As you stand there facing west, let yourself feel this longing to know and to merge with all these magnificent others around you. The trees, the grasses, the ground. Perhaps there's a breeze, moths, owls, a babbling spring, and all the others who are there with you. Notice and feel that all embracing desire to know and to surrender to those mysterious and enigmatic fascinations all around you that promise to threaten and plunge you into magic and rapture. That can devastate you in all the right ways with their song and their beauty. In the summer, the tree's blood rose, but it is autumn now. And you feel that part of you, like the sap in the trees, wants to sink back down to the source of everything, where the true and unique colors of the leaves and depths of you and all things are revealed. It's autumn here, and you are harvesting the bounty of gifts and gift giving. Here in the West, you are now courting and romancing the unique beings of this world. And these mysteries are also courting you, beckoning you into your fullness. In the West, there are inner beloveds too, guides, which will be your companions on your journey to soul, inner guides. Perhaps you can recall images, dreams, memories, where an inner beloved lover beckoned you. Or perhaps you can feel into your deep longing to be courted by an inner beloved. A being that is often both terrifying and alluring. One that you long to merge with, but the price seems too high. Here in the West, the work is to make yourself a bigger vessel, a tastier vessel, to allow yourself to catch glimpses of soul. And allow yourself to bring back the richness of your experience here. To remember it. And know that you can return later when there's more time. To be with this imagery of what emerged. When you're ready, maybe express gratitude. And when you're ready, take a deep breath and stretch. Eventually opening your eyes. And we'll open it up to any comments or questions about this direction, this puzzling direction of the West.
Yeah, so thoughts on Facebook Live, or those of you that are on Zoom want to share what your experience or thoughts were? You unmute yourself and jump in.
Doug, you're climbing right into my bib overalls. I got a place up in the Knobs, and the deck overlooks a woods with a pond in it, behind which is a ridge, behind which the sun sets.
Uh-huh.
And in the fall, I spend more time there than anywhere else, especially at sunset, watching the golden light climb up the trees as they slowly turn gray with their golden heads on. As it proceeds, the trees start turning into silhouettes. The pond reflects an icy gray, and then the sky starts climbing from black up to a really deep azure blue. And I just do that meditation many times as I can. I mean, this has been going on for years. It sounds like you've been recording my soul somewhere.
Sounds like a very powerful and profound place to devote yourself to, right? The beauty of the natural world is devastating, right? And beautiful and alluring. Yeah.
Right. It's like Suzanne and her hawks. This is my little piece of wilderness, and I still get to live in it and observe the world frequently.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Carl, why don't you jump in?
Sure. So I'll share some of my what the meditation said to me. So I guess it kind of put me in sense of my age, you know, and the West, of course, is that sunset years, so to speak. Well, I don't like to think of myself in the sunset years, but in fact I am. And I just had a birthday this week, so I'm all the more aware of being in my 8th decade.
Happy birthday, Carl.
Well, thank you. And so, you know, I mean, I've worked with the 4 directions before, and what struck me now was, of course, when we're in the East, we're awakening and we're coming into self and we're learning who we are. And what I heard as we looked into the West in this meditation was the whole notion of kind of letting go of that self. And I like what Doug said about, you know, things are darker and not as clear. Things are not so differentiated. The boundaries become fuzzier. And I felt a resistance to going into that direction because, hey, I don't want to let go of myself. And then I took a minute to think about the magician, the sage who would guide me. And so just kind of trying out different guides. Of course, as being a Christian, I looked at Jesus first, and somehow he wasn't the right one for me this time. So ironically, I thought of Mary Magdalene and the female guide and her wisdom and her sense of knowing the holy. It's like, I just can't go into the darkness on my own. You know, I really need a guide. I really need the magician, the person who is familiar with that place to lead me. So it just seemed like Mary Magdalene might be a much better guide for me. And it was real helpful to me to the learning, just to conclude, the learning for me was, I can't do this alone. You know, I can't face this alone. I need to both look at of course, when we're doing the inner work, we look at our inner guide, but it also is much more than that for me. Of course, it's not just the inner, it's you know, it's other people, it's conversations like this that are helpful to me. So I really appreciate that a lot, Doug. Thank you for leading us in that.
Oh, thanks, Carl. Yeah, and something that I hear you, the one who needs others to help. And, you know, living in a community where there's, you know, rites of passages for all the different stages of a life. It's the power of that, right? Where people can hold you, the community can hold you through each one of those. But I also think too, like you said, we do have these inner guides too that show up in various beautiful forms, right? That we can lean into. And go ahead.
Yeah, let me, thanks so much for that, Carl. And I'm really interested that Mary Magdalene came up because for men in the second half of life, it's the integration of their anima into their psyche that is the guide. So, like, you know, in Dante's Inferno, he along in midlife, he came to a dark place in the wood, a dark hole, and who meets him is Beatrice, right? And she is his animus. She is his unactualized feminine that takes him into the journey into reclaiming who he is. And so I think I'm interested that you said it wasn't Jesus that came up, but it was Mary Magdalene. And my hunch is it is the feminine for the masculine that becomes the guide in the second half of life. So that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Carl.
That's very Jungian, Judd, where Judd talked about that. If you have a feminine core, you can be a man or a woman. You know, the guide to soul often gets personified in a human form. But there is an energy that lives in our own psyche that wants to take us down to dying to our old way of being so that the never before seen can be birthed. So that's what this West is about, at least in this model, right? Is that we do have these inner beloveds, these inner energies that come, and they're very alluring and terrifying, especially to the surface ego part of us, who I like my story. This is it. And you're asking me to do that. What now, soul? Holy macromoly, no, right? You know, so then there's that question in you, right? Who's guiding the ship? Everyday consciousness or soul, right? Or something like that.
Well, and I have the sense too of, I really appreciated what you said earlier. I was on the phone before, so you all didn't see that I was on, but I was listening to what you were saying about spirit and soul, and I just resonate with that so deeply. So in this context too, so the anima, of course, anima is the spirit force. So that spirit force that in a sense takes me deeper into my soul, deeper to become who I am, but paradoxically, not in my ego nature, but in my unitive nature, in the deepest sense of my soul, in the unitive soul, the integrative soul. And again, that I think is the work of the West. When we face the West, is to be able to let go of that distinctive what do I want to say? The separateness into a new sense of unitive.
Well, let me also say in this model too that what we're after too here is like, what also am I uniquely here to embody, which is a different question than what do I share in common with everybody else. So that's all what we're hoping to help people to ask that question. And again, like a thumbprint and a snowflake, each soul, you could say, is here to embody something different. My world would not be what it could have been, and the world would not be what it could have been if I'm not, living this unique, art, the way that the archetypes come together for me. That's a different question than a unitive. But they merge though, because soul is ultimately in service to spirit. But to me, it's like, how does spirit want to embody itself through me, which is a unique thing too, right? As well as unitive. Yeah.
I just have two things. A lot of this language is new and fresh, and that's one of the reasons I came today. I always like to learn more and more, but I face the East, and just in response to experiencing the West, I'm in a new place, after having been someplace else. It's a totally new experience. And so I see the morning coming up, and it's like I'm accepting the fact that I really am going to have a new life at the end of my life before I go on to the rest of my life. And watching the clouds, watching the interplay of the wind and the sun coming up every morning in a different kind of way, and the beauty that's such a gift when I'm there and seeing all this working, the hawks, it's all a new experience, but I have this other, maybe grounded in a different kind of way, base that I'm able to use, and my faith is part of that base, but it is taking to the skies and taking to a whole new way of finishing up my life on earth. And so it's lovely to hear about the experience of the West. And I have a neighbor that maybe sometimes when we get back into being able to be more neighborly, that I will be able to enjoy that in the same kind of way, not in the same kind of way, but in a way that is adding to my experience and how I see the world and what's going to be, and who knows what's going to be the future for all of us. But we're building, and it's just such a joy. And
that's a really beautiful sharing.
Yeah.
So go ahead, finish. I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's a really beautiful sharing, Suzanne, and there's something beautiful that happens with the natural world in our own psyches. There's like this a hidden conversation in a way with a deeper part of us, with what we see out here, and like what I'm interested in when I go out and wander in nature, I'm interested in tuning into that deeper conversation, that soul, you could say, or the deeper layers of my psyche is finding, right? And I think that's one of the reasons that like going out into nature has been this eternal place of renewal for Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, etc. That the ego is undefended and we can't lie. And there's these conversations that erupt all around us in the natural world that in some ways my own soul speaks. It's been seen, it sees, it expresses, it knows, it's, you know, etc. Right? Thank you for sharing that.
well, also one other thing, I also feel so included.
Way.
That when I see the sunrise, it's not something out there, and it's not as much of an observation, although I do feel at this point, with everything going on, I am pushed into the position of being more of an observer. And so for some reason, this is including me and making me more a part and less excluded.
Right, nature can do that. We can experience ourselves as belonging to this whole bigger unfolding transpersonal story, right? This beautiful, amazing thing, more than just me.
And if I read and remember, the East is the beloved. The beloved is that was one.
Well, in this model, the West is.
I mean, the West.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. The East is more of a unitive experience, we would say, where the West is more of a unique embodiment, a more unique embodiment. Yeah.
Got it.
I was struck, and Doug, I don't know if you did this or Marilyn did this, that a wonderful practice where you were blindfolded and led around by a trusted companion in a workshop, and taken into nature and taken to a subject, an object, and said, open your eyes and see yourself. It's a very, very marvelous kind
I don't remember doing that. Maybe we did that for Joanna Macy exercise. Yeah.
I just wanted to say to Suzanne that when you're facing east, the beloved is at your back.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think this model, what we're trying to invite people is into this other spiritual path. Most people, when you talk about spirituality, they're thinking of merging with the one, and that's the only spiritual path, or the most important. But what we're trying to offer, and what I think Jung brought back into the conversation, that everything is in soul. And what does your own unique soul have to say about your incarnation and why you're here and what you're about?
Mm-hmm.
At the deepest level, and what are your gifts for the world? What's the unique conversation you're here to have? And again, they're all unique. And so my practices, or soulcraft practice, is designed to tune into the conversation of soul, in again, what it is longing for, wanting the ego to bring out into the world. Say, yes, this is it. It brings up through the muse and through these inner beloved conversation, offers all these dreams and projects and possibilities, right? And then we go to the task of setting our ego, our everyday consciousness, in birthing those projects, those possibilities. And to me, again, this is a different conversation than merging with the one, which both are equally important, but I would say one without the other could be problematic, right? Like back to that tree image. You know, we are fed by the light of spiritual ascendance, realization, but we're also fed by the underworld of soul embodiment, what Thomas Berry called the incendent experience. And then the fruits on our trees that we deliver to the world are very profound, especially if we've done the ego healing and holding, right? The personal and interpersonal work. So it's like, here's these three realms of human development that we want to cultivate. Animus, we do middle world and underworld. There's a lot of people doing upper world. That I think we've got that covered in the world beautifully, but not so much the underworld. And not so many people are doing the middle world with nature as the primary guide and teacher, which we feel now is critical to our human wholeness. So Judd, where are we on time?
Yeah, so why don't we do, how about we do I mean, there's two things that come up for me. We could do everybody get a 30-second checkout. What's been meaningful in a word or a phrase or something. Also, I had a poem that came up for me that I might want to close with, unless you've probably got a poem, don't you, Doug?
I've got a poem too, but I kind of like your idea of the checkout, maybe then a poem. Do we have enough time or not?
Let's do that. Of course we do. Yeah. So everybody that wants to, that's on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook, you're welcome to have a checkout, a comment as well. We'll bring in, but let's check out on Zoom, and let's go if you're willing. And a checkout's just 30 seconds. What was really meaningful to you, or what's emerged for you in the conversation. And I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to go Mary, Carl, Marilyn, and Rhodey, Greg, Maud, Cindy, Suzanne, me, and then Doug. So Mary, would you like to check out what's been meaningful, important about our conversation? You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yes, I got myself unmuted.
Thank you, Mary.
I think the thing that's sticking with me right now is the imagery around the West, and realize that the period around sunset has always been my kind of favorite time of day. Mm. And seeing the sunset, seeing the darkness fall. And also night. I love night. If I can be safely outdoors in nature in the dark, I just love that. So I want to think some more about what that says about me, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you. Carl, you can unmute yourself.
Well, what has really fascinated me in this conversation is what Doug has been saying about the ego work as well, how important that is. Well, and actually, because my training as a spiritual director had a lot to do with soul and spirit. So your categories there, Doug, are really, really helpful to me about that developing unique. Did you hear all that, or did a phone call?
Yeah, developing the unique. We left it developing the unique.
Yeah, developing our unique soul, being empowered by the Spirit. And so spiritual life today emphasizes the unitive so much. Indeed, so very, very important, but so is the soul. So thank you, Doug.
Thanks. Marilyn, Rhodey, check out from you all?
Just words, I think. Wild woman. All the colors of the fall means new beginnings, go back to school. Living into art and music and sensuousness.
Thank you. Rhodey?
I've been thinking about the journey from ego to unity.
Thank you, Rhodey. Greg?
The more I'm quiet, the more I see the wild. And it follows you if you're open to it. It pops up all the time, even when I'm in the city. Oh, and I got it.
Oh.
And the first 25 pages are tough.
Cool.
But you learn his vocabulary, and that helps.
Thanks, Greg. Maud, you want to check out?
Yes, thank you. This is good to be with everybody. And I've been thinking about the healthy ego and the difference in like how we interface with others when our ego is healthy and there's a clarity. I can't say it exactly so what I've been experiencing recently is being so clear that when someone tells a story, it could be even like on the news or something, I can feel it so purely that I feel their emotion. And then I recognize my compassion and empathy, but it doesn't stick on me in the same way that if I haven't been doing like the work over all these years of working on a healthy ego. I used to try to deny the ego, but actually the stronger and clearer it is, it seems the more appropriate we can respond to others and to the world.
Yeah, thank you, Maud. Thanks for being on. I've always appreciated your wild woman, Maud. So thank you for always embodying that in creative, wonderful ways. Cindy, and then Suzanne.
Okay, the West also kind of spoke to me, and the evening with the sunset and the water, and it sort of reminded me of the farm, but it also reminded me of my parents' house and that open vessel. I thought that was really pretty lovely as far as it being available and without all of the baggage, new things could come in. I thought that was kind of neat. And that's it. But it was great being with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Suzanne?
Thank you for this more or less new experience and new language and new ways of looking at things. And while everyone was talking, I thought, well, I see the horizon. And so I see moonrises as well as sunrises. And I have the advantage to see the night and the stars. And when you watch the moon rise and you're able to see over the horizon, that's an awesome thing. And it's a very, I don't know that a lot of people think about watching a moonrise, but it's been a gift. So I don't know what you make of that, Doug. The moonrise is really good.
Sounds pretty tasty, juicy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, my checkout is just I just appreciate everybody's comments and the wisdom on this call, and just beautiful, wise sages and fellow travelers. So thank you, and thank you, Doug. And you get the last word, Doug.
Oh, thank you. I got a poem by Thomas Griffin, Praises of This Place, a short one. If not now, when? Who will sing the praises of this place, if not you? Can you make love with limp excuses? Just one word in your own voice would cock the heads of robins, but today they listen only to worms. Every morning, 1,000 birds give the world a chorus of themselves without hesitation or regret. All through the day, the trees and sky speak in the hushed voices of lovers. And in the night, the grasses sigh in the warm hands of the evening breeze, while fireflies flash their honest love to the distant stars passing overhead. When you are ready, join the conversation. It still needs the strong and delicate sound of your voice. And I just want to offer, maybe I kind of do a little selfish self-promotion, shameless self-promotion.
Please, yes.
Check out my website, bodyartsoul.org. And also I am doing several programs this fall with Animus, Art and Soul, Soulcraft Intensive. I'm actually guiding a program here on the farm if COVID protocols allow. It's a 5-day program to converse more with Soulcraft practices. I mentor folks on the phone too, one-on-one.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and that's not shameless at all. You're bringing good work to our community. So Doug, deep bow to you today for, again, bringing us not only the wisdom, but process in order for us to connect with each other. So we are deeply grateful for the work you're doing, and thank the rest of you all for joining us. Also, no shameless promotion for IPP. We're doing a campaign right now, Keep IPP Alive, an $18 a month donation. If you want to click on that, I put that in the Zoom link, and I'll also put that on the Facebook page for those of you that would be willing to help support IPP and continuing the wonderful online program that we're doing. So thanks for being with us, and come back and join us again. Doug, thanks again to you. Peace. May everyone have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you all.